Hi friends, in this particular module we are going to talk about conflict management. Now definitely as a leader or as a manager or even as an individual working in a corporate, conflict management is very important aspect because whenever human beings are working together or team members are working together, conflicts will happen. Conflicts will happen between two persons. Conflict will happen between one person and a group, between two groups, between different entities in an organization. But on the other hand, if we only being very much worried about the conflict and we are not able to manage it efficiently, definitely then in that case the overall effectiveness of the organization and the particular project will not be there. Therefore, as a leader, as a manager, we must understand about different types and sources of conflict management. Also should learn how to manage and deal with all those conflicts, and definitely we must understand what are the different attributes or characteristics we have to manage a conflict effectively. So already we have understood about conflict in team building session, because in a team conflict is one of the most, I would not say important, but one of the unavoidable circumstances, unavoidable activity always happen. But on the other hand, let us understand how to deal with it. Now, before we start talking about the managing of conflict and different types of characteristics related to conflict management, we must understand at first what is the source of conflict, because conflict management identification is extremely important before you go ahead and try to manage it. At times, we can sense conflict at work, but most of the time we don't know how it is happening. Therefore, a conflict management or conflict self-assessment will help you to pinpoint which specific area you are experiencing in conflict and how to resolve it. Because based on the nature of the conflict, you need to manage it. All the conflicts cannot be managed similarly. You need to understand the reason and the type of conflicts, and based on that, the counseling or the conflict management will happen. And definitely, it can be addressed as a supervisor, as a peer, as an employee, and you can increase productivity. Now let us understand what are the different types of conflicts can happen in an organization, which will start with one-to-one conflict. Whenever one person is conflicting with another person, maybe from the same team, maybe from the different projects, maybe from different units, but very limited within two-person. Maybe they are in power, maybe they are just a team member, but it's very restricted within those two members. Now, if you really want to constructively resolve a conflict with another person, you need to follow certain steps. You need to follow certain guidelines in order to do that. So first you need to get into the right frame of mind and should have a positive discussion. Because if you do not treat the another person with respect and do not go with a positive frame of mind, definitely the understanding of the reason of the conflict and resolving it will not happen. Secondarily, you need to agree on the best time and place of both of you, because obviously it has to be mutually discussed and agreed. You cannot force on your own preferable date and time. It has to be agreed by the another party as well. And then definitely you need to have some ground rules, because definitely if you are too much involved into the discussion of the conflict and you show your own bias or perspective, and then instead of resolving it, you yourself is involving into the conflict, that can happen sometimes. Definitely before that we should set some ground rules that we will limit or restrict our discussion within these points. We will not deviate from that, and definitely have a discussion. Only having discussion can solve a lot of problems, a lot of conflicts. So please ensure that you must have that discussion with the conflicting parties. Now, what would be the approach? Definitely that question will come to our mind. Whenever we really want to manage a conflict, when we really want to manage a situation of conflict, we must have certain approach. We must take some approach. So say for example, we must go with the right attitude to solve a conflict. Send positive non-verbal signals. Sometimes, if you are showing anxiety, if you are showing discomfort, if you are showing anger, obviously this kind of Negative signals will not be very comfortable for the another party who is speaking with you. Therefore, it's extremely important you must show positive signals like listening to the person, trying to understand, concentrating, analyzing. All these positive signals should go. Then focus on the real issue. Most of the time what happens, we really talk about a lot of things but fail to identify the real issue. Maybe in a project two persons are fighting with each other because they are having difference of opinion of using one particular technology. But now because of that conflict they are talking about a lot of things related to client, related to the manager, related to the organization as well. Let us try to understand, is it at all related to everything? Possibly not, because obviously two person cannot start a conflict with everything. There should be a starting point by which they have started it. So if it is something like related to technology, you must try to understand that at first, and then only you would be able to resolve it as well. And definitely pay attention to the communication style of the person, because a lot of information can come or can be derived from the communication style, how the person is speaking. Is it an anxiety, anger, frustration, depression? Different types of style will actually tell you inside of the story. Now, you also as a person, whenever managing a conflict, have certain attitude, thought process, and behavioral style. So therefore, we must be very careful whenever we are going to have a discussion. What you should not carry with you, should leave behind you, is your desire to win, punish, or control. Try to resolve. Don't try to punish or control. Your desire that everything would be fair. In a conflict management situation, it cannot be possible that everything would be fair. Your assumption that it will work, if you are thinking that it will not work, obviously your frame of mind would be reflected in your body language, and therefore the positive discussion will not happen. Your tendency to think in black and white, right or wrong. Sometimes we think this is right, this is wrong, this is black, this is white. But perspective wise, the right and wrong, black and white concept changes, and we must be open about that. Your determination to be right. Not possible every time you would be right. Sometimes you need to accept that few of the things we need to negotiate. And that's why we must think and openly. Now what you should consider, this is we are talking about what you should not consider, what you should not carry with you, but what you should carry with you whenever you are going for a conflict management session. A willingness to work, an understanding that perception is reality both of you and those around you. Perception is extremely important, maybe outside of the project you are thinking this project is not really functioning properly, but on the other hand when you go inside the project you will see because of the irrelevant client requirement, because of their unrealistic timeline, the project is not being delivered. So by changing the perspective you will see a different angle of the problem. A willingness to learn from the situation, that's extremely important. Most likely in most of the cases we do not know everything about a problem. We need to learn from that situation. And definitely a willingness to see and acknowledge your own contribution to the problem. You must contribute, you must not control. That should be the objective and mindset whenever you are going to manage a conflict management. Now obviously, as we have already mentioned in the last slide, that you should be very much aware about your non-verbal signals, body language, because that should show positive signs, because 7% of the word use, 38% on the voice quality, and 55% on non-verbal communication. A lot of communication dependent on the non-verbal communication, 55% of it. So from that deviation of 100%, we can understand only 7% is word, 38% on voice quality, how the person is speaking or doing different types of voiceover or changing the voice tone quality, and 55% on the body language, signs, and different types of expressions. So from that we can understand that if 55% of the communication depends on non-verbal communication, we must then focus on an underlying issue. We should understand the real issue at first, and also try to read whatever is not being told. Like at first, if I talk about step-by-step approach on focusing in an underlying issue, at first you should understand what happened, the difference in expectation, what is actually happened and who did that. Feelings, don't ignore the feeling of someone, and relationship and different types of things that is actually playing a role in the conflict. Identity, am I competent, am I a good person? You must be confident about it before resolving any sort of conflict. Now that is all about one-to-one conflict. Always a one-to-one conflict will not happen. A lot of cases in an organization, in our real life as well, group conflict happens. Two project teams are fighting with each other. Two different teams are fighting within a project. Even inside our politics also we see two parties are fighting with each other. Quite common, right? And that's natural because they are representing one group, both the parties, and that's the reason the group conflict is happening. But on the other hand, we must know how to resolve a group conflict. So if we are facing a conflict during a meeting or during any kind of seminar, conference, or any kind of discussion, then you must follow a couple of points to resolve it. Number one, if you sense a spoken or unspoken conflict in a meeting over an issue, address it. Do not avoid it. If you do not address it, do not talk about it just to avoid it, then definitely the problem will not resolve. The problem would be there, and over a period of time it will increase. Therefore, address it immediately the time you sense it. Number two, clarify the conflict. Okay, so there seems to be some disagreement over. If someone is disagree, that's okay. Disagreement can happen. Disagreement is very natural. That means involvement of the person. So do not ignore it once again. Try to clarify it. Try to explain it. Then decide if there is time to deal with it today, or if you need another meeting to provide your full attention. Maybe you are conducting the meeting for something else. If you are fully involved into the conflict management in the same day, in the same meeting, your primary objective may not be effective. So therefore, try to decide whether we can do it now or later, and then talk about it. Number four, if another meeting is necessary to resolve the conflict, you must assign responsibility for gathering more information of the subject, because without preparing, without gathering information, all the informations relevant for the conflict management must be there with you before you go for another meeting. And insist employees to go for the until next meeting. So people should not be bothered and worried about the conflict during that meeting if you really need another meeting to resolve the conflict. So they should let go their heart feelings, their thought process related to the conflict before you conduct another meeting. And that's why we have mentioned a couple of important, or I would say relevant or real-time communication examples to manage meeting conflict. Like whenever you are insisting employees letting go the conflict or the anger until the next meeting, we can talk about in this manner that we have a lot of other issues to discuss today. So let's free our minds of this issue until the set meeting and move on. So that's how you can address it. Now, obviously, let us understand, or let us assume that another meeting is happening for the group resolution, for the group conflict. Now we must follow certain steps to manage that conflict, to resolve that issue. So the steps would be restate, having, making, brainstorming, agreeing, developing, and again agreeing. Now at first you restate the issue, then you have each group member to share their information, then make sure that everything is there, no unresolved feeling is there which is not known to you, and then brainstorm with everyone and check for the alternatives, then agree on the best solution using the team and by using different decision making steps, and develop an action plan based on that, and then agree with everyone on the follow-up session. So it has to be a very systematic approach. You must not ignore anyone. You must do it along with the team who are conflicting with each other and follow a structure. Obviously, whenever you are following a guideline of communication or action items, people will not feel much comfortable, and they will feel that ultimately some steps has been taken to resolve the conflict. Definitely it will take some time, but on the other hand, the feeling would be there that yes, things are happening. Now, this is the first session. We will come back with some conflict management style explanation. Definitely in this session, we will also give you a conflict management self-assessment exercise by which you will understand you are also following which kind of conflict management style. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.